Hello, it's Memorial Day, so I thought I'd tell you a love story about my mom and dad. That's my dad. I hope you can see him. Daddy joined the Army when he was 17. He walked, I'm going to say 55 miles to the nearest city where he could enlist. He'd been in the Army around 2 years, and he was stationed at an Army base up in Massachusetts, near the town my mom was born and lived in. Now, my mom my mom has passed, from a French-Canadian family, and hardcore Catholic. Mama she taught Bible school. And one Sunday morning, my dad and his buddy decided that they would get out and look around the town. Excuse my rags. Been working. And they were driving around, and just so happened my mom and her buddy, Gertrude, were walking to church. And Dad and his buddy were driving along beside of him. Daddy was a fine-looking man, and my mother was a beautiful woman. Well, he spotted her, so he slowed down as she was walking, and he talked to her. He did this a couple times. Finally, my mother agreed to go out with him on a double date. She always double dated. She never went out on a date by herself. Mama was smart. Feisty little thing, too. She wasn't 5 foot tall. So they went out, and of course, the soldiers, they were out for a good time. So they went dancing, and my uncles were there. They were always around, always around. They watched their sisters. Anyway, after the dance, Daddy and his buddy were going to take the ladies home. And they decided to take a little detour to a parking area. Well, Mama was way ahead of him on that one. She and Gertrude had a plan. So they parked, and they told the guys they had to go to the bathroom. So they got out of the car. And where the parking area was, Mom and Gertrude knew exactly which way to go to get back home. So they walked through the woods and went home. Now, Gert lived just a little ways up the road from my mother, so they got to a little halfway point, and they each went home. Left them. I thought that was pretty smart. Anyway, Mom and Dad continued to date, and one day, Mama was sitting on the bench a little ways from the church, and this other lady sat down, and her name was Rita also. And she sat down, and she looked over at Mama, and she put her arm out like this, and she said, "Look what Olin gave me." That was my daddy. Mama looked and said, "That's nice." And she said, "Look what Olin gave me." And she showed the other Rita her diamond. Well, Mom and Dad got married in Panama because Daddy was sent to Panama to teach jungle warfare. So She went to Panama, and she was on this little boat going to the dock off the ship, and there was a family of missionaries on the little boat with them. As soon as they hit the dock, some men grabbed my mother. Had it not been for that family of missionaries, I wouldn't be here, because they were swiping pretty women for slave trade. But they didn't get my mama. God was looking out for her. So she married Daddy, and they came back. Mama came back home because Daddy still had he still had to fulfill his commitment there. But then when he did come back to the base there in Mama's hometown of Forge Village, Massachusetts, Daddy decided that he was going to marry Mama again, because he knew how hardcore Catholic she was. And Daddy was a Baptist from right here in North Carolina, Wilkes County. So they married again in the Catholic Church and raised their family. Daddy stayed in the military. Mama traveled the world with him. But each time she was pregnant, she made sure she was in the States to have her babies. That was very important to my mother. But today's about my daddy. Sergeant Lloyd Olin Jarvis. A fine man, an honorable man, loved his country. Daddy died in service. He had a desk job at that time. Died of a major heart attack in our home. I remember that night vividly. Daddy was in the bedroom reading a book. He and my mother read all the time. Mama was in the kitchen, and she kept sending me in there to go check on Daddy. The last time I went in there, Daddy was on the floor. He was having his heart attack. I was 7 years old. I lost my daddy that night. My mama lost her best friend and her soulmate. Daddy was 41. Mama never remarried. But she raised us kids. I don't think she did a very bad job. I think she did a fine job. I miss Daddy, but I thank him for what he did. He took care of a lot of young men when he was in the service. He trained them so they wouldn't die. Sometimes it was hard. Sometimes he had to be mean. But sometimes you gotta be mean. It was because he didn't want them to die. He wanted them to know what they needed to know to survive. And they loved him for it. I love him for it. So happy Memorial Day to all of you, and remember what today is about. It's about remembrance. It's about those who served in the military for our country to keep us free so that we have the freedoms, the choices that we have today. If you know someone in the military, thank them. If you've lost someone that was in the military, visit their grave if you can. Take them a flag. Tell them you love them. Have a great day, everybody. Know that I love you, and God bless.